Hey everybody, good afternoon. It's been a while. I haven't posted many videos recently, but been kind of busy and I want to get back to this and touch base with you guys on a couple of topics. So since my last video, the topic was really tariffs and how it's going to impact supply chain. So since then, they've been implemented. Since then, they have changed numerous times. And I think what you're seeing with businesses is it's just they don't really know what to do or how to plan for this. So we have a 90-day pause. At one point, we had tariffs at 145%. The Trump administration backed them down. They're at 80%. But still, it's definitely caused a lot of problems. A lot of factories have gone idle over in China. There were some protests over there. One of the things that we're expecting to see this month of May is at the port of Los Angeles and Long Beach, which is one of the biggest ports in the country, is just not many containers coming in for the month because of all the orders that haven't been placed. So how is that going to really affect supply chains? Well, for one, from a transportation perspective, dray carriers, the carriers that come and pick up those containers and pull them out of the port, they're not going to have as much work. The warehouses that those carriers bring the product into for transloading, and again, transloading simply is the term of taking the product off that container and putting it into a warehouse, palletizing it, and putting it on a truck. The warehouse workers are going to have less work. There's going to be less freight coming out of the West Coast, and that's a major market here in the United States. So really, we're starting to see these effects within the supply chain. And some of the data that I look at, and I'll talk a little bit about that right now, and also I put it in my monthly newsletter, that I study to kind of see, is what I'm hearing out there in the marketplace, I guess for lack of a better term, validated what the data is saying. So two data sets I like to look at, and again, I've talked about them, is the CAS index. And really, this is just a measure of freight movement throughout the country from a shipment perspective, volume from a pricing perspective. And so no surprise, in April, the shipments were down 3.6% year over year. Now, what's interesting is they were up about 0.3%. And I believe what a lot of that you're seeing is some of the front loading that manufacturers did to prepare for these tariffs to bring product in early before the tariffs hit. So that kind of makes sense. But I think, again, for this month, you're going to see a lull. I think even though there's a 90-day pause, a lot of these companies that are trying to, get the manufacturers to fire back up in China, start to produce and get it back on the water and get it over here before the 90 days ends. I just don't think it works that way, right? You can't just snap your finger. There's time, there's processes that have to be adhered to. So that remains to be seen. The truckload line haul index, and again, I'm just reading off my notes here. It was up year over year. And again, I think that's because last year, again, you didn't have these tariffs. You didn't have these challenges with port strikes possibilities. So you had all this where, again, going back to manufacturers, distributors, these companies were bringing product in, trying to avoid the port strikes, trying to avoid the tariffs. So you are seeing an increase in truck costs, okay? But month over month, it's down. And so again, I think that a lot of that is because there's just not as much freight moving through the network, okay? So the other data set I like to look at, and I've shared with you guys, is if you guys go on the website, the Institute for Supply Chain Management, a lot of really good information in there. And the main data point that I look at is the number that manufacturers put out, whether they're in contraction or expansion territory. And again, it's under 50. So anything under 50, manufacturing is contracting. But some of the commentary that I'm looking at bullet points, almost every single bullet point, and there's probably about, 5, 6, 8, 10 to 12 of them, everything that they are saying has to do around tariffs. So again, these businesses, they're trying to figure out, does the customer going to have a stomach for this? Should we bring this in? Maybe should we eat the cost because now there's a 90-day pause? Maybe it's going to continue. Again, it just goes back, these businesses don't know what to do. So we talk about supply plan, we talk about strategy, but planning 90 days is tough. A lot of these businesses, they plan 3, 6, 12 months out, 2 years out. This is really disruptive to them. So again, the overlying theme that I'm seeing is they just don't know what to do. And what I'm seeing is like domestic producers, and I'm quoting one of them, are charging more for everything because they can. And this is a fabricated metal products company. So they know they can, right? And they're going to see what the customer's appetite is. And I think that's kind of just a wait and see approach. Just this week, Walmart has announced they're going to increase prices on their products. I was just at the grocery store a couple days ago, and I went up to one of the gentlemen working there in the produce section, and I said, hey, are you seeing any effects from the tariffs? And he said, the bananas. For years, they held them at like 48 cents. They're now at 53 cents. And the manager of the store said they just raised it because of tariffs. So you're starting to see some of those effects. I just think that, there's only so much you can do as a business. There's only so much you can do as a consumer, right? And so I think what's ultimately going to happen is everyone's going to wait out, see what these 90 days bring, and then from there reassess and kind of plan. So I think from now on, if you're a business, right, you have all that inventory sitting there, you can start to, shift it, sell it, or, hold on to it. But I think, again, it goes back to that double-edged sword. Do you want to risk losing customers, not have adequate inventory, or do you want to have too much inventory and it's just going to sit there and cost you money? Now, you can try and sell it, but again, it goes back to that earlier point, is the customer going to buy it? So again, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of challenges, and I think that, again, for companies, you're going to do the best you can. So I appreciate you watching. I'm going to get back to these weekly videos, but if you are challenging in your supply chain, if you have questions, always reach out. Happy to help and give any advice we can to guide you through these difficult times. The only other thing I would say to you is that, make sure you're keeping your suppliers close. Make sure you're working with your carriers as best as you can. Understand that they have been in this as well. So they're trying to plan capacity around, are you going to need their services? Are you not going to need their services? Do they need to shift containers or trailers in other parts of the country for other businesses? Or maybe you have warehouses, distribution centers in other parts of the country. Work with them, talk with them. Because again, I think the more information you can provide them and they can provide you, it'll certainly help make better business decisions, again, as best as you can, right? So just keep the lines of communication open, talk to them, collaborate, and just do your best you can and hang tight, all right? So we'll be back next week with another video. Thanks, guys.